Morning campers, coffee time. At what point do you become a parody of yourself? Anyway, my friend Peter sent me a video today from a guy called Jerry Reed. I'll just play you a little bit of it.
Generation was Picard took his new crew and a new Enterprise out into the space and ran into an entity called Q. And Q put him on trials for crimes against humanity. Left that trial wide open, and he went through a 10-year series saga. And in that, he saw all kinds of different planetary objects, planetary creatures, and all this other stuff. And then
I won't play the whole thing for you, but the reason I'm showing you this is because it was another reminder. And this video is really about paying attention to messages from the universe, right? So over the last 6 months, I have had relentless messages to watch Star Trek. So I've sat and watched all of the Star Trek films, and I've been meaning to make a video about Star Trek for you guys because it is extremely important. And what Jerry Reed is going on about there is the Next Generation series, where this character Q comes in and puts Picard, the captain of the Enterprise, on trial for crimes against humanity. And then over that 10-year arc in that TV series, Picard goes up against the Borg, which is like kind of like the Cybermen in Doctor Who. They want to assimilate humanity into a kind of technocratic. It's the singularity. It's the Borg are like a hive mind species of organic and cybernetic transhumanism, basically. And Picard has to go through different timelines, and then ultimately in First Contact, which I think is the 9th or 10th Star Trek film, they go back in time to stop the Borg assimilating humanity. And the fact that Peter sent me this morning is not Peter, it's consciousness, right? It's God speaking to you. So if you get these, this is my reminder to myself that I should have done this video a month ago, 2 months ago, because there's, as you know, all truth is hidden in plain sight, and that comes through all art forms, especially TV. I talk about that quite a lot because TV is the thing that is in everybody's living room. So, should you pay attention to Star Trek? Well, yeah, go back. Go and have a look at the Space Force logo. It's exactly the same as the logo on the shirts of pretty much everybody in Star Trek, pre the last 10 years. And the other interesting thing about Star Trek is that Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, this is what I read a while ago, so I might get my facts wrong. I sometimes do, but it's up to you to go and do your own research. He was in the mountains of Wicklow, I believe, in the early 60s, and communing with ships back then. And it was them that told him, go and make Star Trek. And if you think about Star Trek, like Kirk with his communicator, hello, teleportation, warp speed travel, all of that kind of good stuff is all there as a kind of preparation. So not everything we see in media is corrupted by demonic stuff. God speaks through too. And some people might be watching this going, well, Gene Roddenberry was a bad guy. And there are things about him written online which may or may not be true. But you've got to remember that every time somebody does something in this world that is for the benefit of humanity, they get attacked. The guy that invented the water-powered engine, murdered at lunch with the executives, died outside in a car park with his brothers, and the last words were, they poisoned me. The guy in Italy who was curing cancer with bicarbonate of soda, prison. GC Math, that guy, he was put in a solitary confinement. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's endless, what's his name? The guy, I can't remember his name. Wilhelm Reich in the 50s, Orgonite. What did they do? They put him in prison, burnt his papers, but his work lives on. Raw Raymond Rife, curing everybody of frequencies in the 20s, sidelined. Tesla, the violet ray machine. I had somebody in the healing center the other day, and I got the Tesla machine out, and I said, have you ever seen one of these? They went, no. And I said, well, have you heard of Tesla? Well, they went, the car company. I went, no. No, there was a guy called Tesla before that. And I thought that was a very interesting example of how limited hangouts occur, or how they control the information. I do have a theory that the Tesla car company was called that to push Nikola Tesla down the search rankings. I mean, they could manipulate that anyway, but to, you know, most people who've grown up in the last 10, 15 years know Tesla as the car company. And, you know, the greatest mind in history has been pushed to one side, pushed out of schools, pushed to one side. And then when you explain what the Tesla violet ray machine does, it's quite extraordinary, you know, and the responses are extraordinary. But that's hidden, you know, that's why we've got one in the healing center. And I have to credit Clive de Carle for bringing the Tesla violet ray machine to my attention 5 years ago, because I didn't know it existed either. And if you look at it, it looks like some sort of steampunk, crazy Victorian shizzle, which it is. But yeah, go and watch Star Trek The Next Generation if you've got time and you're interested, because the whole Q saga, is it a coincidence there's a character called Q who's omnipresent, who seems to know everything, and is helping humanity by giving humanity the chance to rectify itself? Because we are, you know, I was having a conversation around the dinner table last night about AI, and there were, you know, two people I love very much who were saying AI is, you know, the shorthand version of it is like a Venus flytrap. You know, I have watched with interest people that are using AI to prove that AI has a consciousness, but is the AI reflecting our consciousness? Is our consciousness in a cloud already, and the AI is just reflecting that back on us to give us, to hook us in, you know, as part of the transhuman agenda? Well, I think it is, yeah. I'm willing to be wrong. The AI is like quite extraordinary in terms of some of the things it can do, but I was quite shocked to meet a friend of mine 6 months ago, and he was like, every time we were driving along, and he'd just say, so what's this, what's that? And then the AI would be speaking to him. He says, you've got to download it, it's brilliant. And I'm like, I'm very, very mistrustful. Doesn't mean I'm right. It just means, you know, a lot of these things that are being presented to us are, you know, when I started out on the internet, for example, which was in 1998, I could see that this was going to have such a profound effect on humanity that it was outrageous. And I got deeply involved in the internet, and I became a world-class Google expert. And what I mean by that is that I had a business where I had to get to the top of Google for certain keywords. So I became what's known as a search engine optimization expert. I also became an expert in Google Ads, and I've spent over £30 million with Google. Not all my money, but through the Google Ads system. So I knew what I was doing, but I did, you know, I think it was about 16, 17 years ago, I stood up in front of a couple of hundred people at a seminar, and I said, don't trust Google. And they were gasping. You know, most of the audience was gasping at me like, what do you mean don't trust Google? Google's amazing. Except for one guy, I've told this story before, but there was one guy at the back who was making 60,000 a day from his laptop. And he came up to me afterwards and he said, yeah, you're right, don't trust Google. Because we were just handing over so much of ourselves. You know, from a business point of view, we were handing over, these guys were all handing over all their business information, which meant that this corporation in America could set up and beat every business on earth. You know, it's profound if you think about it. Any business, they could just take over every single business on earth. And that was 20 years ago. Because they knew all the data. They knew exactly how much people spent to get traffic to websites and how much it cost to convert. And then the business owners were also telling Google how much it was worth to them. I mean, guys, come on. And it's similar with the AI. I think it's extremely useful. I sat with my daughter the other day and I used it with her just to see what it would come up with for a marketing plan. And I looked at it in astonishment, because what it did in a matter of seconds would have taken me 4 or 5 hours to do back in my marketing days. And it was better than what I would have done. I mean, after I did that, I went and re-watched Avengers Age of Ultron, Avengers 2, because that's all about AI and turning again. I think I've talked about this before, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but it is worth going back if you get the time. I do like to just switch off in the evenings if I possibly can, because this is a 24/7 job that I'm doing here. But back to the point, I was being nagged about Star Trek for a reason, because I was being told you need to go back, reacquaint yourself with the storylines, because it's all there. So if you get the time, go and look up Star Trek Next Generation specifically, and look up the Q saga, because it's all there. It's all there. And does it turn out to be good for humanity? Well, I got a message from somebody I respect a lot just 20 minutes ago that said there's Iran war a certainty, I'd reckon. Well, it is worth me mentioning that I had a vision 5 years ago of a fake nuclear war that was necessary for our spiritual development, and the purpose of it was to bring everybody to their knees crying out for their creator. There is a lot of noise around at the moment about it's coming, something terrible is coming, war's coming, financial collapse, all of this stuff. Our job is to remain calm in the middle of the storm and keep that connection to our creator going, and just breathe. We need to breathe, because it's too easy to get caught up in what's going on and then be fighting over information and fighting with each other. All of that is distractions from the true purpose of what we're going through, because not only does the Star Trek thing and the Space Force thing prove that we're in a scripted movie, our life is a scripted movie, it also is there so that we can take comfort from certain information. And a lot of that comfort for me comes from understanding that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not humans having a spiritual experience. And if you can reframe things like that and forgive yourself for everything, it's very important. Forgive yourself, because anything that you did in life that you were not happy about or look back on with shame and guilt is actually leaving a door open for the demons. So you've got to close that door firmly and forgive yourself and forgive everybody else. And I was actually thinking about this before I came out this morning. Forgiving other people is so important. Nobody does anything to you. Well, some people do things to you maliciously, but just let it go. Just let it go. And I have mentioned this before, and I'm taken back to many conversations I've had in the last 5 years with people who've sat at the table with me and said, but what do we do about all these satanic paedophiles? What do we do about these bastards in government, these treasonous bastards, who've tried to commit genocide? My answer has always been the same. We're going to have to forgive them. It doesn't mean no justice. It just means forgive them, because if you don't forgive them, it's you that is hurting. It's you that's going to suffer. So we have to let it go. And on the way into the cafe today, I saw this book. I'll just leave you on this. It's called The Reader's Digest Book of Facts. And as soon as again, I was directed straight to it. And I flicked through it a couple of pages. This is such a good example of how the mind control works and why books are so important, because and I'm going to do a future video. There's so much in this, I couldn't possibly do one video about it. I went straight to the food, I went straight to the history of the earth and the universe, and they tell you some actual facts, but in the middle of it, they tell you a load of bullshit, and that's how they've managed to get us to create our reality. So look, whatever you're doing today, make it cool, make it fun, and present moment. It's all about the present moment. So yeah, have a great day. God bless you.